Welcome to the Backlash, a weekly discussion about the past, present, and future of the Western world. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves. You may know me from my channel, Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Dave Riley. Hello.
Howdy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Mr. Vincent James.
Hello. How's it going?
And Mr. Cameron McGregor. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just entranced by that entry music. I feel like I want to go kill some terrorists.
Yeah.
So let's kick this off.
Well, on that note, we are going to be talking about Syria, about masculinity. This has been a jam-packed news week. We aren't going to get to everything. This Daniel Penny thing, it feels like it was months ago. This was, like 3 days ago? Daniel Penny acquitted.
Right.
Yeah, what a relief. What a relief. I was ready for a much worse outcome.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I thought it would be another Derek Chauvin situation.
Yep.
Well, I was surprised when they got rid of the top charge.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then, when you have a mistrial like that, they always try to retry.
Uh-huh.
So, interesting.
Yeah, I was happy to hear that he didn't get any lesser charges. I thought that that's the way that was going to go. And then, of course, we have this United Healthcare shooting, which I don't think we're going to get to too much. But Vince and I, before the show, were talking about those side-by-side pictures with the eyebrows. And now I'm getting really tinfoily about this whole thing. Like, is this a distraction from Syria? But then I can't. Why else would they do it except for that?
Right.
I don't know.
It
I
makes
mean,
sense.
all the side-by-sides that I've ever seen are different angles. Because it's not dead on. So, I can't say anything definitively. I mean,
You don't have the answer, the definitive answer? We were
No.
looking to you.
No, I think, I'll tell you what is definitive. His reading list has Gone with the Wind on it.
Gay.
And so I don't know exactly how he slipped that disc in his lower back. Starting to question exactly how that, because they don't tell us. They just say that he had some back issues, and it was in his lower back, very close to his ass. And so I'm wondering
Yeah.
exactly how that happened.
I don't understand like the physiognomy of gayness, but when I saw that picture of him, I was like, that guy is a homosexual.
I
don't
know.
know.
I find the whole thing completely weird. It's either just like a mafia hit, but the manifesto was so boring. And
You know what's
it could
really
have fit
weird?
in a tweet. The whole thing is just
The manifesto was excellent. What are you talking about? Oh, it was fantastic. I was reading. It was short enough. It was consumable. It was articulate. Not a grammar error in sight. I loved it. I would rank it top 3 manifestos.
woman
Seriously?
moment.
Oh,
woman
yeah.
moment. Yeah,
What?
That is
Totally.
why.
Did you guys
It was
all
like
think?
women
retarded.
Did you guys
have
all
bad
think that
taste.
the manifesto was
was
bad?
dumb.
Cameron, you too?
And also, hang on, I do have a question. Cameron, you had us, before that even happened, you
Yeah.
suggested that we talk about the Unabomber manifesto. And that was like 2 days before that Mangione
It
thing
is
happened.
true. No fewer
What
than
is going
3
on,
texts
actually? What
did I
is-
get saying, is Cameron a Fed?
Is Cameron a Fed? Is he
Is he a
setting us
Fed?
up?
Yeah.
Well, so some people know me as QAnon, so that could be it. I don't know.
He's Q.
He is cute, but it was timely and prescient, so well done, us.
Yeah,
Good job.
Mostly Cameron, though, for
Sometimes
suggesting
you
that.
win, sometimes you lose.
it's true.
That's why we play
Yep.
the game, folks.
Kind of a weird coincidence, though.
It is
for
a weird
sure.
coincidence, yeah.
For sure.
But if you guys want to check that out, that was episode 4 of the Backlash. I think all of our episodes are going to be timeless, which I like. Because when you do the news cycle, nobody goes back to watch your show, but
Right.
anybody can go back to episode 4 of the Backlash and watch our very interesting discussion about Ted Kaczynski. So do you guys just want to dive right into this crazy Syria development? I mean, I've been watching Judge Knapp all week, every day,
Nice.
and it seems that the intelligence community just had no idea that this was going to happen, which I find somewhat unbelievable. But I've talked to some military intelligence of my own who told me that we do only have 1,000 troops there, and it is feasible to believe that the government was not totally plugged into the intelligence of Syrians and what was going on there. What do you guys think?
I think Israel did it.
Well, yeah, of course.
I think the CIA and the Mossad did it.
Well, yeah, I mean...
That's the only take, right? I think.
Yeah, I think that is the only take. We can all agree there.
On Syria? On
Yeah.
why this happened?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
the Greater Israel Project.
The Greater Israel Project. And
No
then,
doubt.
But we can't deny that we definitely had a massive hand in how this worked. And I guess my question, although I don't want to jump too deep into this, I guess my question about this is, do we know that the result was going to be mass chaos? If we really had a direction for how this was going to go, or Israel, then why didn't they have anything set up to deal with the government change? So the result, so it makes me believe that chaos was the intended result.
But they never do.
Sometimes they do.
I mean, look at all the times that we've toppled governments in the past.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that we just lack foresight?
I don't think that they can. I mean, if you look at what's going on right now, you look at what they're doing right now. They're moving in. They're in the buffer zone for the first time since 1979. They're already talking about initiating bombing runs on because this happened on Iranian nuclear sites. This was all set up, by the way, and Cam can probably expand on this. He's really good on foreign policy stuff. But if you look at how, there's another answer to why they've been going after Russia, right? Why they've wanted to weaken Russia, because by weakening Russia, you're able to move in, you're able to take out Syria, which is something they've been trying to do for a long time. They just haven't been able to do because of Russia protecting Syria in some way. They tried to get Trump to do it. I mean, you guys remember the white helmets and the chemical attacks, and we've got all these links that we can go over if we want to. Now they're able to do it. Now Assad is gone and Israel's moving in.
Before we start on all these links, why do you think Russia withdrew? The most feasible reason that I can find within the intelligence community is that they just did not see Syria as an important strategic asset anymore, and they knew that they were not going to be able to continue to invest in it. Cameron, what do you think about that?
Okay, so I would give you guys a different perspective. When we think about the Middle East, we tend to see it through the prism of Israel. That is a mistake. The Middle East is a very big, very complicated place. You got to remember that Iran is the size of Western Europe, okay? It is a gigantic country. It's a massive region. Right now, there are, depending on who you talk to, there are 5 or 6 wars that are going on. There's a war in Gaza, which we're all well versed in. There's a civil war, or there has been a consistent civil war going on in Syria. Obviously, the regime there collapsed recently, but that didn't mean there wasn't skirmishing going on. There has been. You have the collapse in Lebanon, more or less. The skirmishing between Israel and Hezbollah, which there's a ceasefire at the moment, but nothing has been resolved, okay? There's also fighting going on in Sudan. There's conflict between the Houthis and the Saudis. I could go on, okay? But the point is that this region is a mess and it's changing. However, what's driving Syria, what's driving the toppling of Assad, as far as I can tell, is not Netanyahu, and it's not the Israelis. The Israelis have certainly benefited, and I think they've exploited the situation. But the principal driver is Erdogan in Turkey. So just give me a little bit to sort of monologue on this, okay?
Go.
Most of you use the term the deep state. The deep state is not an American term. It comes from Turkey, okay? It was used to describe the legacy regime before Erdogan, who is basically an Islamo-fascist, took power, okay? The reason they use the deep state is because the deep state was the military authoritarian regime that more or less has been ruling Turkey since Kemal Ataturk, who is the guy who basically established Turkey as a modern nation state after World War I. Kemal Ataturk was a secularist, sort of like Assad, okay? Erdogan had other plans. Erdogan is an Islamo-fascist, but really he's an Ottoman. He wants to reestablish Turkish Ottoman dominance of the Middle East. So for those of you who are listening at home, the Ottoman Empire basically ran from Turkey all the way to Algeria. It controlled the entire Arabian Peninsula in its day. Erdogan's vision is to recapture that. He looks at Syria as Ottoman territory that he can reclaim. He basically switched sides, okay? He defected from Russia, China, the BRICS, etc., and did some kind of a deal with the Israelis that allowed them both to partition the country. They both got something that they wanted. However, Turkey is no friend of Israel. And eventually, the destabilization of Syria, I suspect, is only going to compound the regional war that's already begun between Iran and Israel. Remember, Iran and Turkey don't get along either. So there are many pieces to what's happening here. My own guess is that the Russians did what you said, Rebecca. They basically cut their losses. They said, look, this regime is crumbling for various reasons. We're going to cut our losses and we're going to refocus on Ukraine and other strategic interests. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for this war, right, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. And really, honestly, what you described there kind of, again, like, who does this benefit the most? Who does the destabilization of Syria benefit the most? Right? It's the same group of people. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing, right? Whenever you destabilize a country or a regime, and we're going to elaborate on this more in the show, there are downstream consequences that you cannot account for. This is a persistent strategy employed by the neocons who think that they are imperialists. They're not, all right? They're chicken hawks. They don't know much about what they're doing. And just as they broke Iraq and then unwittingly strengthened Iran, my guess is destabilizing Syria was a very bad idea because it basically puts Islamists in the driver's seat who are no friends of Israel either. You have to remember that the Israelis are waging a kind of psychological war in which there are no prisoners. They want to wipe any potential threat out. The problem with that is a lot of these regimes, whether they're fascist or not, dominated by people like Assad, whether they're dictators or not, they are preferable to Islamists. You can't make a sustainable peace with somebody that's lopping someone's head off every other day, which is exactly the people that you put in power.
Did you see the interview of the rebel leader?
My guess is this is not going to benefit Israel long term. I think it was a mistake on their part.
Well, short term, it definitely is. Do we have the clip of Netanyahu like smiling about? Do you have that in the?
Is it in the show notes?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Aha. Is everybody utilizing the outline?
Where
Is that
is
what you're
it
talking
at?
about?
I used it.
Where is it in the show notes? Netanyahu happy.
That doesn't
Got
even
it.
look like how I wrote it. Okay, go ahead.
Got it. I think. Hold on. No, that didn't work.
That was it. It was on his page for sure. There we go.
It means we have to take action against possible threats.
Hold on.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes
You can cut
to
it
defend.
there.
Yeah.
So in the interview of the rebel or one of the rebel leaders, they were basically like glazing him. And then Bill, I don't know if you saw that clip that I posted. It was Bill Maher or no, it wasn't Bill Maher. It was one of these like news. They were glazing him too. They're like, this guy's like, he's going to make peace with Israel, and he used to be radical, but now he's not really radical. And it's like, we've seen this story over and over and over again. And we saw it with bin Laden. There's an article from, I think it's the 70s, where they basically called bin Laden a peaceful. I can't remember exactly how they described
painted him as a hippie.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that was when the CIA was using him, but once they didn't need him anymore, then
Right.
we saw what happened. And so this is certainly in the short term. I don't know about the long term, but certainly in the short term, this is going to benefit Israel. And maybe in the long term too, Cam, because what do they want? What's their end goal? Their end goal is to take out Iran. Their end goal is to have an all-out. I mean, these people are crazy.
I do want to point out, though, that Turkey had a strategic, what do you want to call it? A strategic goal in getting rid of Assad as well, because Assad was selling oil on the black market to the Israelis, from what I understand.
And they also want to deal with the Kurds in northern Syria.
Yeah, and that would have undercut Erdogan's oil, right? You also have an issue with Syria exporting Captagon, which is an interesting thing. A couple of years ago, I think I wrote an article about it. But it's this like new drug. It's like meth, but they've been exporting that to the Ukraine. The Ukrainian soldiers like Azov Battalion have been using this like crazy Middle Eastern meth called Captagon, and the Syrian government's been profiting from that as well. So, don't get me wrong.
Captagon.
I'm like
crazy.
not happy that Assad is out. I am not happy at all. But there was some I think tangible corruption that was going on in the country as a result of the sanctions, right? Because when you sanction a country, you can't engage in normal trade. You have to resort to things like black markets and whatnot. And so I think that there was a lot of that going on in Syria. And I can understand how Turkey would want to take him out, cut him out of the equation, and then exclusively be able to control the amount of oil that's going to Israel through their pipeline.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
So I'm not saying that these aren't lining up. They're obviously lining up, right? Otherwise, Turkey would never have agreed to it if it wasn't in their interest as well.
Cameron, I have two questions for you. So
I'm sorry, Rebecca.
No, cut in when you want to.
Yeah, of course.
If I'm saying something stupid, let me know. Okay,
cut in whenever you want to.
We don't know what the short-term or long-term consequences are, except for one thing: Iran goes nuclear because of this. They will go nuclear. That seems to be the opposite of what the Israelis want, unless they're prepared to do a preemptive strike against Iran. Okay.
Well,
now,
haven't we been seeing that come out?
Yeah, you could pull it up. I had the link, or actually, I just tweeted it out. They are striking their.
Go ahead.
There's I can't remember. I think it was one of my. There it is. There's the article right there. IDF sees chance for strikes on Iran nuke sites after knocking out Syria air defenses.
Right.
Over 85% of Assad regime's anti-aircraft systems destroyed in strikes, giving Israeli jets, drones total air superiority. IDF assesses weapons from Syria could reach Hezbollah. So what Netanyahu was talking about it there, he was talking about the agreement from 1974. The Israelis haven't been in that buffer. They haven't moved into that buffer zone since 1974. So now they're in there, and now they're like, this is a historic day for Israel. But, I mean, maybe Cam could be right. Maybe this is all leading up to World War III. I mean, honestly, Cam, I think you could agree with this, right? These people are crazy enough to start a frickin' World War III. I mean, they have the Samson option, right? Israel has the Samson option, which basically states that if Israel is ever threatened in any way, they will basically nuke the entire planet. That's their Samson option. So they're crazy enough to do it. I don't know. Go ahead, Cam. Say what you want to say.
No, I think that, like I said, it's a very complicated situation, but destabilizing Syria, like destabilizing Iraq, again, if you go back to 2000, 2003 and the lead up to the war, a lot of the Israelis were on board with removing Saddam. They were not on board with sending Iraq into a civil war, which empowered Iran and basically gave them half the country, and then further destabilized the whole country and created ISIS, okay? That's effectively what we've done with Syria all over again. And as I said, giving the Turks that piece of it is basically ceding more territory to a Sunni power that's not friendly to you. Right. So, I think the Israelis are not thinking this through. I think they're very myopically focused on Iran, as you described. And it's that sort of paranoia that has led to this overreach. Now, remember something else. They've created another front now. So you've got a front in Syria, you've got a front in Lebanon, you've got the ongoing war with Hamas, and this could potentially destabilize Egypt or other Arab countries in the region as well. They haven't thought this through. They're just thinking short term. And my guess is, again, I think this was largely some deal brokered by intelligence services working for Turkey, the United States, and Israel. That's what I think really happened.
Do you think that the greatest short-term incentive was because Iran was funneling weapons to Hezbollah?
Through Syria.
Certainly, that's part of it. Yeah, certainly that's part of it, because they're myopically focused on Iran. They can't see anything else. And again, it's another replay of 2002, 2003. They can't see anything but weapons of mass destruction and Saddam Hussein. Of course, it turned out he didn't have any. And then when you destroy his regime, you do. You basically hand it over to the very power that you say you oppose. So as I said, I just think they're very myopically focused right now, and they have not thought this through, Rebecca. But you're exactly right. Their thinking is this is all about the proxy war between Israel and Iran. Let's cut off Syria so they can't supply Hezbollah, and it's game on.
They always do that.
Do you think that this will even be effective in crippling Hezbollah's military capabilities?
We'll see. So I'm not an expert on Hezbollah, but from what I gather, the Israeli military took heavy losses in Lebanon. It didn't gain any territory, really did not even meaningfully damage Hezbollah, okay? Now, we'll see, now that Syria has been terminated to some degree in terms of those supply chains, maybe they can do more damage. But the Israeli Defense Force is not what it used to be. And there just aren't that many Israelis. That's another thing people don't realize. The whole reason, the whole justification for getting the United States into the Middle East was because the Israeli military is not capable of fighting all of these powers. We had to do it for them. Now they're engaged on multiple fronts, and they're taking losses. And remember, it was the Israelis that created Hamas. How did that work out?
Yep. Right. No, I mean they're always they've always been that way, where they're just like you said, just like hyper focused on one primary goal, and they don't really care about the collateral damage as long as they're eventually going to achieve that goal. Right? It's kind of like a drug addict, right? Just robbing. Like, he doesn't want to hurt his family. He doesn't want to rob from his family, but he has the goal of getting the drugs, and as long as he can accomplish that goal, he doesn't care about the collateral damage. And this is how it's been. This is how it has gone forever. I mean, like you said, since the clean break memo of the early 2000s, since Iraq, since the weapons. And by the way, that intel about the weapons of mass destruction mostly came from Israel. Netanyahu visited Congress himself and talked about how you have to take out Saddam. It will have positive reverberations throughout the region. Most of the intel on weapons of mass destruction came from us. And when the intel from Israel didn't exactly say what the neocons wanted it to say, they doctored the intelligence. Douglas Feith, we can go into that stuff. So they've always been, they don't care that it just goes into chaos. They don't care that it leads to a mass migration of whoever into Western countries. They took out Gaddafi actually said a while ago that I'm the only one standing in the way of Europe turning black. Like, they don't care about any of that, as long as their primary goal is achieved, and it's always been like this with them.
Yeah, one other thing to note, Rebecca, because I do think this is very important. A lot of people, when they assess what's happening from a military or an intelligence standpoint, will always assume a top-down order flow. That's not necessarily the case. There hasn't been, as we said, I want to say 2 episodes ago, talked about there hasn't been oversight of the intelligence apparatus in decades. So you're talking about a lot of interagency rivalry that's operating independent. These organizations have gone rogue. So they have all kinds of interests that don't even touch the president's desk. All right. Now, again, what does that tell you about the nature of the challenge that Donald Trump and his new administration faces? Okay. We have a rogue government that's openly doing what it's been doing for half a century. And that is regime change, assassinations, killing people, destabilizing countries. We are just now getting a front row seat to it, right? Because of Twitter, social media, we're talking about it. This has been going on for decades.
I think it's more erratic now, though, that, Biden is not, he's not in charge of anything. And I've talked about this on the show on my show for a while, which is that you have these different factions, like Cameron said, that have different interests. They have different goals, and they've basically been given the keys to do whatever the hell they want to do. Like a lot of people talk about, well, you know, Trump is a Zionist, Trump is a this, Trump is a that. Israel's been able to do whatever they want to do under Biden since he's been in office. I mean, look at all of the wars, look at the destabilization, look at all of this stuff that has happened, and they've just been able to do whatever they want to do, blow whatever they want to blow, take out whoever they want to take out, and you have these different factions that have these different interests and goals. In fact, if you go to that article from the New York Times, I think it's from 2017. It's one of the first things that I put in the show outline. I think it's the first thing that I put in there. There's an article about this clandestine secret operation that was put into place under the Barack Obama administration. And so imagine like what's going on under the Biden administration. This was a covert CIA program to arm anti-Assad rebels in Syria. And Trump ended it in 2017, basically soon after he was inaugurated. He ended this project. So this is just like one CIA program. This is one covert CIA program. Imagine how many other CIA programs are going on right now under the Biden administration, and you have different groups with different goals, as Cameron said. I think. Look, go ahead.
Just real quick, I just want to give an example to substantiate your point. The Mexican cartels are deploying drone strikes against the Mexican army. Where'd they get that kind of hardware?
Right.
Where'd they get that kind of weapon? Why are they as sophisticated as they are? Gee, I wonder.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, really, to understand a lot of this stuff, you kind of have to go back to the early 2000s. You kind of have to go back to the Project for a New American Century and the Clean Break memo, and you have to look at what this memo was. Maybe a lot of people don't understand what this memo was, but this was written by people like Douglas Feith, Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz. These are all Jewish American. They call them the neocons, right? They're all Jewish Americans, and they wrote this memo. This was a memo actually addressed to Bibi Netanyahu, and basically what it said was, in order to take out the countries that Israel sees as a threat to them, or maybe not a direct threat to them, but a direct threat to their goal, their final goals, their Zionist goals, we have to, quote, spread Western democracy to those countries. Now, what does that mean? It means toppling leaders, toppling regimes, taking out regimes, and installing governments, which is what we do, what we have done all over the world. And just as Cameron said, the Israelis can't do it themselves. So what do? They get us to pick up the stick and do it for them. Mm-hmm. And, it's very interesting with this. You go back to this memo. All of the people that wrote that memo went to go work in the Defense Department for George Bush directly after they wrote this memo. One of those people was Douglas Feith. And Douglas Feith, he actually was investigated by the Attorney General for doctoring intelligence that was coming in. So a lot of this intelligence, actually, you can find articles on Fox News. You can find articles from The Guardian. A lot of the intelligence on weapons of mass destruction came from Israel. And when it didn't show exactly what these neocons wanted it to show, he doctored it. And he didn't get arrested for it. He didn't go to jail for it. And then there's another thing. There's another piece of information inside that story. You go to there was a person who was working for Douglas Feith. His name was Lawrence Franklin, and he was tasked with a lot of this stuff under Douglas Feith. He actually got caught, and he wasn't even Jewish. He was Irish Catholic. And I hate to say this, but it seems to be the case that a lot of these Irish Catholics are kind of working hand in hand with the Jews. So that meme of the fighting Irish leprechaun, and he's got the Jewish nose, and he's like it's like almost like a totally true meme. He was Irish Catholic. He took secret intelligence, and he passed it to Israel through 2 AIPAC employees. And that's very interesting considering, what we know about AIPAC. One of the employees was, and I think Dave knows a lot about this. One of the employees was Steve Rosen, and he's kind of famous because he's quoted in an article in the New Yorker for saying, we can have the signature of 70 senators on a blank cocktail napkin if we wanted to, basically boasting about the power that AIPAC has. Yeah. And then there was another employee. What was his name? Douglas Weissman, or
right?
Was it Douglas? Keith Weissman. He was another one of the employees that Lawrence Franklin passed this information to so that they can give it to Israel. Lawrence Franklin, the Irish Catholic, was the only one who went to jail for this.
Of course.
The two AIPAC employees didn't go to jail. Douglas Feith didn't go to jail for this. Lawrence Franklin went to jail for this.
Of course.
I tweeted out a couple of screenshots. I don't know if you can pull this up. There was a couple of screenshots. There was an article that was written about. Someone came to interview him decades later, years after he got out of prison. He was crawling under a house, cleaning up like shit or something. Like that was the only job that he can get. He was like cleaning up like poop or septic from a septic tank, cleaning out a septic tank. And in this article, they interview him, and basically he said, and yeah, I don't know if you can find the tweet there.
Clip.
Which one?
No, it was in the. It was. You can actually. It's on my.
Larry
my
Franklin
main
scandal. Is it this one?
My main timeline.
Yeah.
If you go to my main timeline, it's very interesting. This part of the story. You can just scroll all the way down. You'll find it. I don't tweet that much. Just keep scrolling a little bit. Keep going. Right there. Larry Franklin. And yeah, I don't know if you want to read that. If you can see that better than I can.
We just lost.
That second page. Oh, go up. Right there.
There we go.
That one. So the second page. So once labeled an AIPAC spy, Larry Franklin tells his story. So read that second page. It's a quote from
you
him.
just want this so that you can clip the audio out of context.
Of course, 100%.
And fabricate.
I'll read it.
I was asked about every Jew I knew in the office of the Secretary of Defense, and that bothered me, Franklin said. His superiors at the time were both Jewish, Paul Wolfowitz, Deputy Secretary of Defense, and Douglas Feith, Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, whom Franklin believes was a target of the investigation. Quote, one agent asked me, how can a Bronx Irish Catholic get mixed up with, and I finished the phrase for him, with these Jews? Franklin answered, Christ was Jewish too, and all the apostles. Later, I felt dirty, he added.
Man.
So he literally did the dirty work for these two Jews that wanted him to give secret information to Israel through two AIPAC employees. And this Irish Catholic guy was the only one that got arrested for this entire, the Lawrence Franklin
Why
scandal.
did he do this, though?
Because he was tasked, he was working under Douglas Feith.
But he had to have been incentivized. He had to know.
I'm sure he was incentivized in some way.
I mean, do you think it was just financial incentive?
Who knows? They probably paid him. They said, hey, go
blackmailed him?
give these Steve Rosen and Keith Weissman this information. Go give them this file or whatever. And then they just like pinned it on him.
Pinned it on him, yeah. Standard goy patsy.
So this is, I mean,
So
this
that's
is
the second like big Catholic spy that I know of. Because who was that Opus Dei spy that wound up giving all of that information to Russia? What was his name? I can probably pull that up really quick.
I forget it. I forget. But I mean, to understand
Robert Hansen.
Yes, Robert Hansen.
Robert Hansen. Sorry about that, guys.
I remember that. Yeah.
That one's on us.
But
My bad.
I mean, to really understand like a lot of this, and I know it's a lot more complicated than this, but to sort of understand Iraq, to understand weapons of mass destruction, to understand all of this, you have to go back to that memo. And I think that memo, and I know Wesley Clark is kind of sus, but I think that memo was the memo that Wesley Clark was talking about. He said, I received a memo, and it said that we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. And he named all the countries, and all of those countries, except for Iran, have been taken out.
Is that this clip?
Yeah, but I think that's like a long clip. You can play it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of a long. You can play the first.
At least
That?
what
No,
I
that's
wrote
not that
down on
clip.
my notes.
That's a different clip. The Douglas Feith clip. Yeah, there's a couple of clips in
Don't
there.
worry
We can
about
play them if we don't want.
Go to his Twitter.
Anyway, so that's and this is all stuff that and I know it's a lot less organized today than it was. And honestly, there's some truth to what Trump said, where he said, like, the Jews used to control our government, but now they don't control our government anymore. I think that they have maybe not as tight of a grasp as they once did.
That seems impossible.
But they certainly still have a grasp over. And even Nixon, people like Nixon used to say this, and lots of presidents used to talk about this, and lots of politicians used to, this is just information that has been sort of MK ultra'd out of us almost. I don't know.
Cameron, do you want to jump in
Cam looks
here?
like he wants to jump in.
I don't agree with that statement at all. The Zionist Israeli domination of our government has never been higher. It is peaking, and all one has to do is look at Trump's appointees and listen to what they say. People like Keith Kellogg, who's going to go to Ukraine and negotiate whatever's left of that country with the Russians, or his incoming national security advisor, all of whom have basically said there is no daylight between our views and Joe Biden, right? Continuity is what has been established. And you have to bear in mind, folks, that after World War II, institutions at every level were set up. The Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, okay? Things of that nature. Also, the Five Eyes, the intelligence agencies in all the Anglo countries, the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, so forth and so on. These institutions have been retrofit by a foreign power called Israel to use at their discretion. And you might throw in MI6 in that mix as well. All of these various networks have been repurposed to the greater war. And that greater war is not just about Israel. There are other factors. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the interests of the United States. It has nothing to do with the interests of average Americans. And so again, I go back to Trump. What is this election really about? What did it achieve? What alternative organizational structure does he have? Maybe he's got something under his sleeve. I don't know. From what I can tell, I don't see any daylight between him and Joe Biden.
I thought you were QAnon. I thought you were QAnon. You said you were QAnon. I thought it was going to be all good. The Patriots are...
No. Cameron's right. Did you guys see that clip of Assad being interviewed? And he's saying, like, listen, Donald Trump had an agenda. Perhaps he was serious about it in 2016, but the deep state did not allow him to enact his agenda. Right. And so I think that everybody knows that he's neutered this time around, and then that is informing their political position.
Here we go.
To clarify... Oh, go ahead.
Let me pull this up.
On the president, what should he be doing? And the proof to what I'm saying, that Trump, after he became president, he swallowed most of the promises and the word that he was boosting during his campaign. He made 180 turn in nearly every promise. So why? Because the deep state wouldn't allow him to go in certain direction. That's why, for me, dealing with him as a person, it could be, but can that person deliver? No. And the United States president cannot deliver. The whole state, the deep state only, is the one who can deliver. And this is the problem. This deep state doesn't accept partners around the world. They only accept puppets. They only accept followers. They only accept proxies. That's what they accept. We're not any of these.
And the problem is those proxies serve the interests of Israel, right? It's like Cam says.
So just real quick, Vince, I want to emphasize this point, okay? Because a lot of people.
Oh, just to clarify
this.
before you go off, I meant like organized grip. Like Israel doesn't have as organized as a grip over our government as they once did. I think they're a lot less organized this time around.
Understood. What is the deep state? What is the deep state, right? Because people throw this term around and it just has no meaning. It's these hidden people in dark corners that plan everything. It's the globalists. No. The deep state is the entire apparatus of government, national and international. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. If you want to get into the State Department in Washington, D.C., you got to go to Georgetown University Foreign Service School. You got to go to the School of Advanced and International Studies at Johns Hopkins. You have to go to Princeton. You have to go to Harvard. Okay, you go to the Kennedy School. What are all of those institutions saturated with? Who runs them? Who's teaching these students? Where are the feeder networks that staff the whole government? They're all part of the same system. You can't get ahead unless you agree in principle with globalism, with the neoliberal order, with wokeism, okay? The government is the deep state. There is no deep state. It's the state. What are the problems in Europe? It's the European Union. It's the European Parliament. It's the European Central Bank. It's the IMF. It's the World Bank. There's no deep state. These institutions have all been perverted, contaminated, and destroyed. They've been turned against the very populations they were supposed to represent. That is the deep state. That's what God is talking about.
There's something reassuring about that, though, that it's not necessarily the shadow government of which we have no knowledge. They are operating right before our eyes. And that should empower us to some degree.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're doing a shitty job. They're doing a shitty job of it. Nobody trusts any of these institutions. Trust in the European Union. I just released a video on France. Trust in the European Union in France has collapsed. Trust in the European Parliament, in the government, has collapsed. There's going to be a revolution in France, and that means it's going to spread to Germany and Italy. All these institutions, in addition to being mismanaged, are also old. They're old institutions. They don't really function the way that they used to function. So you're exactly right, Rebecca. It's not hopeless, but we need to stop thinking about this in terms of some elite cabal that we can't see or feel or touch. No. It's the structure of government that we're up against. And again, how do you defeat that? You build a new structure. How do you defeat the legacy media? You build alternative media.
Totally, yeah.
We've done that.
Yes.
That's what we are. That's what this platform is. It is not hopeless. And remember, nobody trusts these institutions. Nobody.
I was just going to say, I've got a chart over here. Look at this. This is from Statista. Trust in Congress at 8%.
Ooh.
Wow. Big business, 14%. News, 14%. Newspapers, 18%. Exactly. I mean, large tech companies, the presidency, and public schools and banks all share a measly 26%. So like 3/4 of Americans don't trust the largest, most important institutions in our country.
Right. I mean,
That's good.
That's good. That's good news.
We are seeing alternatives. Can you bring that back up, actually?
Yeah, I can.
We are seeing alternatives to these emerge organically. So to the police force, people are going to form local militias to deal with it. The medical system, I'm seeing naturopathic medicine absolutely take off here. I know a lot of people that are free birthing, things like that. Church, of course, we can keep that organized. I'm seeing
in the churches that preach the truth,
yeah,
right? They're all having kids.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
Absolutely.
It's very obvious. There's like you walk into a church and it's either everybody is old and one foot in the grave, or it's like so many kids who don't know what to do.
I noticed that when I moved out here, I went to church and I saw this guy pull up in a freaking like conversion van. Or it was after church.
You're talking about my friend, Chris.
No, not him. It was another guy. And he left one of his kids on the side of the road, and we're like trying to wave him down. He had like 8 kids. He forgot one of them on the curb. We're like, hey, you forgot a kid over here.
Some Home Alone stuff going on.
Okay, banking, we have Bitcoin and some other alternative banking, public schools.
Bitcoin.
Everybody's homeschooling. The presidency, not much we can do about that. Tech, I'm not seeing a lot of emergence of alternative tech. People would cite Elon Musk, but I would take issue with that. We can do organized labor. Newspapers, I would say that's alt media. Criminal justice system, nothing we can do about that. Maybe.
There is. What are you talking about? We just don't talk about it on this show.
Yeah, seriously. So, I mean, organically, we are going to see a lot of alternatives emerge. What Cameron's point is well taken, but what I worry about in this period of revolution, that while the spirit is there, I don't want us to be like Israel in that we are myopic in our thinking. We're focused on just the next thing, and then we don't have any infrastructure in place when the spirit of revolution is strong enough that we're actually able to overthrow these systems. And that's really what I want the focus of the show to be, because it's like, well, what do we do to make sure that we're not totally screwed?
Well, I was going to say, and this does kind of segue into a clip that I wanted to play, because there's always like the next day, there's the day after. So it's like, let's even imagine that there's a revolution in America. There wouldn't be. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe it's possible, but right.
What kind of American are you?
I know.
But I guess the point is that the day after a revolution, what happens. And we actually have video from Syria of the day after a revolution. And it's really interesting to see how quickly they move in to make sure that they keep control of this angry mob.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
He's saying God is great.
لا إله ونظامه المستعمر ونظامه العميل.
He's denouncing
قد
Assad.
تأخر هذا الأوان ولكن لا نقول إلا ما يرضي الله. قد آن أوان سقوطك ولكن يا أهل الشام الحذر الحذر فقد خرجنا من بيوتنا
It says we've come out of our houses
ومن بيوت الله
and from the mischiefs,
عملا بقول الله تعالى إن تنصروا الله
saying you have to plant your feet firmly.
ويثبت
And you see this
أقدامكم
arrow here? They're pointing at this guy.
فيجب كي نحافظ على هذا النصر أن نستمر على هذا الدرب
We have to continue on the path
أن نستمر على هذا الدرب وأن لا نقبل
and not accept support from the puppet nations of the West.
ولا من الدول الإقليمية العميلة ولا من أمريكا.
Not from America. Oh, boom. Takes the mic immediately. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is that guy speaking?
That was just some guy, you know, that was just like one of these guys that was clearly involved, a part of one of the factions, clearly an Islamic faction. So he gets pushed off stage, and then this guy gets up. Look at him. So it's just kind of, it's funny, and like you have to pay attention because you can see that there is a revolutionary spirit in Syria right now. Like the people were kind of upset with the Assad regime. And a lot of these factions think that they're going to go do their thing. And you can see very clearly that they've got these handlers on the ground that are like,
Yeah, they already
nope,
had it set
you're
up.
not doing
They
that.
already
You
had who
weren't
the
talking
government-
about
yeah.
America. You're not talking about marching to Jerusalem. You're not going to do any of that. So I think that this situation in Syria is going to break down and devolve, and all of these separate was there 47 different factions? They're all going to fight each other. The Kurds, the Alawites, the Sunnis,
And then it's just
the
going to
Shia.
become fiefdoms. Like I don't really see a way that Syria's not going to get broken up into a bunch of pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this isn't really a government. Like I'm hearing all of these people refer to this as a government. Al-Jolani, he's wanted by the State Department. I mean, and now they're acting like he's some kind of peaceful.
Yeah, but they say that he's fine. Like, I mean,
But that just goes to show
lot
that
of
when
these
they
people were
use
wanted.
you, when they use you for their purpose, then they'll totally on a dime change the memo, change the
Right.
headline about you until he's no longer, until none of them are useful to the American government anymore.
Cam, you were saying something.
Yeah, so just a couple things. One is, Dave, you're exactly right. What's happening in Syria is not a revolution. It's a regime change, okay? And it's a regime change in a country that was barely held together by dictatorial power. When you remove that dictatorial power, you get exactly what happened in Iraq. All these factions descend into civil war, and that's exactly what's going to happen in Syria. And again, so I emphasize, how is that in the interest of Israel? Who can you deal with if there is no authoritarian despot to sort of hold in check the chaos? There is nobody now. So now the Israelis have to deal with it, okay? And as I said, the downstream consequences become very difficult to control at that point. However, revolution is something different. And I think the best definition I've ever seen of revolution comes from Samuel Huntington, whose best book, by the way, is called Political Order in Changing Societies. It's not Clash of Civilizations. But in that book, he defines revolution as follows. Revolution is a rapid, fundamental, and violent domestic change in the dominant values and myths of a society, in its political institutions, social structure, leadership, and government activity and policies. Revolutions are thus to be distinguished from insurrections, rebellions, revolts, coups, and of independence. Okay. Now I emphasize that because what are we experiencing today? An inversion of values in myths. All that we discuss on this platform in the brief episodes that we've had is basically the poison, the propaganda that has been poured into the minds of the American people. An inversion of that is a revolution, changing the myths, changing the spirit, okay? That's what we're engaged upon. That's what this whole project is about, which is why it is metapolitical. It's beyond Democrat and Republican. It's changing the whole system, and that starts at the value and mythical level. That's what we are engaged upon. How does that happen? It happens because we have a financial crisis and or war, or both. I have said to Vince routinely, the financial system is extremely fragile. You're seeing that break down in France. These governments are insolvent. And of course, now they think it's a good time to start wars, right? Obviously, they're geniuses that have gamed the system, right? They industrialize the economy. They have no military. It's filled with minorities and women. Perfect time to make war on China and Russia. I'm sure we're going to win.
I just heard a statistic today at an AI conference that I was at that the Pentagon released a report that 70% of American men are unfit to serve in the military.
They can't pass the PT. Yeah.
That's like Gen Z or whatever. 70%.
I'm amazed it's that low.
Didn't they lower the
PT's
IQ
hard.
test that they had too?
They have an IQ test?
There was.
A height
What is it
requirement?
called, Cam? What is the test that they have? It's not an IQ.
Well, they
it's
have
not-
something called ASVAB in the Navy, which basically tells you where you're going to go. It's basically an IQ test.
Yeah.
But what's actually happening is white men are not signing up.
Right.
They're just not enrolling.
Good.
They're divesting. And can you blame them?
Yeah.
Why the hell would you go fight in a war for Israel? Doesn't make any sense.
Right. For the values of sodomy and,
Right.
Well, you mentioned Sam Huntington. I don't know if we want to segue now or not, but you mentioned Sam Huntington. There's a book that he wrote called Who Are We? And have you read that book, Cam? Who Are We?
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
Great book. Yeah.
He actually talks about how, after 9/11, there was like this resurgence of patriotism, and they thought that finally that Americans will find their identity in this tragedy that occurred. And he talks about how in the streets of New York City, for the first time in a long time, everyone had the American flag up, and you had them like houses lined with American flags, and inevitably it failed. Right, in a few weeks, the American flags came down. This is the creed is not something you can find your identity in. America, again, as we've talked about before and many times before, is not just a creed. America is not just the Constitution. America is not just an idea, right? As Charlie Kirk once famously said, America is the people. And I guess this is a perfect segue for the identity segment that will let Cam.
Well, wait, should we hit
go
power
ahead.
chats first?
Oh yeah,
yeah, let's do that.
let's talk.
We can do some power
again.
chatting.
Powerchat.live/thebacklash. It's not going to play. Hopefully, it's not going to play.
No,
but
now,
we're going to
now
go
it
through them.
should. We should be able to
They'll play.
hear.
Yeah, we'll go through. Go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
We should be able to go through.
The show that's better every week.
We
The
do
show.
try to get better. What's today's date? 12.
It's
Well, the
12th.
first attempt didn't happen. That never happened.
Hey,
so.
nobody knows except for the
Nobody
people that were
knows.
already here. Anybody
How
watching
would
this
they
on
know?
replay, because you just told them, Vince. Because you told them.
They would never know
Vinny.
if it wasn't for you. Awful. All right.
We have a lot of live viewers. Thank you
We
guys
do.
so much
We have
for
a little
joining
over
us.
2,000 live viewers.
Let's
That's
go.
so
Thank
cool.
you very
Thank you.
much.
Send it to your friends, your family. We keep the language somewhat clean on this.
We try.
Streaming everywhere.
All right. Is it going to make
The Backlash
noise?
sent $10 in the
They
beginning
might
was
be able
the
to hear it,
Word,
but
and the
maybe
Word
we
was with
can't.
God, and
Let me
the
know
Word
live
was
chat
God.
if you can hear this.
Do the same was in the beginning
If not,
with
we
God.
will read them.
3 all things were made by him, and without him was made
It's
I
nothing
think
fine.
it's
that was made.
no, I think it's reading.
For
I
in
don't
him
think
was
we're going to
life,
hear it.
and the life
Okay.
was the light.
Well,
Yeah. No, it went through. So in the
Really? Did
beginning-
you guys hear that?
They did.
Can you keep it on the screen? Because I didn't even read it.
It said in the beginning was the Word, and the Word.
were they
was
hearing
with
it
God,
when
and
it
the Word
popped
was
up
God.
though? When it first popped up?
No, they weren't. They're hearing it now.
Okay, so what did it say?
I'm just gonna read
you could just
it.
read it.
It was-
Play it and read it. There we go.
Shout out Blonde.
Robert sent
Hold
$50.
on. There we go. Shout out Blonde from the Telegram Club. Merry Christmas. Love the show.
They said they can hear it, but it's low. Thank you so much. I have the best Telegram group. It's amazing.
And we have Swag Bussin' McFresh, no cap, with $10. So happy to see Rebecca making regular original content like this. Been a fan since 2016. You are spreading the message for those of us who can't without losing our income. By the way, would any of y'all be open to going on Millennial?
Have any of you guys been on Millennial before?
Yeah, a long time
You
ago.
have.
Oh yeah, you should see if you could go on this year.
Yeah, he invited me on this year.
You should go.
Yeah.
Millennials, it's the best part of the year. It's got cozy vibes.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
No. Well, all right. Well, that brings us up to right now. We only had a couple of super chats.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you guys
so-
need to go to powerchat.live/thebacklash and send us your money. Send us some
We'll get to them at the
interesting
end.
things. Yes, we will. And you'll see them pop up on the screen as we go. So,
Do we want to
identity.
pull up that video?
You had to step on Vince's excellent transition.
I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's fine. We could do super chat breaks, or we could just do them all at the end of the show. Whatever you guys. What does the viewers think? I don't know. What do you?
Yeah,
guys
what do you guys
think?
want to do? Let me know in the live chat. Would you rather us do it at the end or split the show into two?
Just do a super chat segment at the
Yep.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audience can
Yeah.
tell us.
So where's this video? There's a
It
video?
should be in the outline.
It is at the end of the it's right there. It's right there in the outline. Look at that.
Just click on it. It should pull it right up.
Boom.
You can put it on 125. It sounds normal. On
They're everywhere.
125.
It's 125.
Young
And then
guys are
Cam can tell
so
us to stop
confused
whenever he
about
wants us to
whether or not
stop.
they have any worth in the world. But when I hear about people putting in their mouths, hanging themselves, like my friend Johnny Fair, or drug overdoses, it's like this is preventable. It is preventable. It's at the level of sure government institutions, but like I'm saying, like I'm putting the call out now. Like I think we got to like crew up and take care of each other because time's going by.
It's good to hear you say that. Where do you think that this movement's coming from? This need?
Oh. One thing I'm increasingly concerned about, because it's the experience I know, I'm concerned about mental health for everybody, frankly, but I'm very concerned about the suicide rates and depression rates of young men in the United States and elsewhere. But we have a serious, serious crisis of identity that people are starting to talk about. But even the mere mention of it, it sounds like, oh no, they're all going to rally together and do bad things. No, these young guys are so confused about whether or not they have any worth in the world or how to express their generative drive in positive ways. I think most of it starts with lack of, I'm just going to say it, of a strong, in the right sense of the word, paternal figure. But actually, if I may, I brought this, I've been reading this book that was suggested to me by another team guy. What is it with you guys? That is a really, it's somewhat of a controversial book, but if I could, the book is called Iron John. Have you read that book by Robert Bly? Very powerful book about boys and men's relationships to themselves. And it's a little outdated on certain dimensions, but having grown up in a, home where my dad lived separately and this whole thing, I think, it really struck a chord with me. But, there's one passage, can I just read it? It's a very brief quote. So Bly said, and I don't know if he's saying it for himself or if he's quoting someone else, but he said, the whole of the remote father leaves a gap in the boy's life that demons can enter through. And that just hit me like square everywhere. And I was like, that's right. Like for every bad thing that's come to me, through me, out of me, that I regret, that I wish I had done differently, the challenges that I wish I had chosen differently, I'm not blaming my dad. That's not what this is about. But I think that we are in a point now in the evolution of this country. I do believe it's an evolution, not a devolution. I do, I'm an optimist, where we don't know who to look to. There's a lack of either an internal or an external paternal model that helps us discern between really not good road, so not good road, okay road, pretty good, and best road. That we learn that in part through trial and error, but we also learn that in part by being told what to do at key moments. And I look out on the landscape of podcasts, right? you, Joe, Lex, Jocko. I look at figures like Goggins, Andy Stumpf, right? There seem to be a lot of team guys in the mix, but there are others too, right? Chad Wright, Rich Roll, right? Jay Shetty. I don't want to like paint this picture that it's just one kind of archetype, right? And what I see is a lot of, certainly female audience. Mine is certainly very, very much 50-50. But I hear from these young guys, and even guys my own age or older, like we've sort of drifted away from this idea that there's a standard kind of set of protocols, dare I say, to follow to get yourself through the wickets to becoming a solid person inside and out. And there's no excuse making, right? But if I look at the mental health crisis among men in this country, right? And women, but
that's why I said put it on 125 speed.
I think that we've had,
I didn't even hear
even
that.
in homes where fathers were there, sometimes they were absent because
but
of
eventually he says
abuse.
that people have a lack of identity because of a lack of brotherhood. And I think that that's...
And I think sometimes they were there and are really terrific fathers. And I got friends like this with were amazing dads, amazing kids. To boys and girls.
Because he just talks way too slow because he's
I guess what I'm trying to say is I am very grateful for my experiences.
But anyway,
I'm very grateful to have shored things up with my dad.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Cam. You wanted to say something. I think you're chomping at the bit to say something about this.
You want to hear QAnon's opinion?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, yeah, I recommended that we play this clip because for most of you are, I'm not a social media star like Rebecca and Dave and Vince, so I have very few followers, but I have written for years pretty extensively about exactly what Huberman is talking about. Now, I like Huberman. I think he's a nice guy, but he's really dancing around what is happening, okay? The men that he's talking about who are particularly depressed, who are suiciding themselves, who are lonely and detached, are white men. All right, let's be very clear about that. All right, that is who he is talking about. Now, he's not racializing it because he doesn't want to get into trouble. Fine, but ultimately, it's white men in America and in the Western world in general who are in trouble, and they're in trouble because their nations have abandoned them. And I'm going to go into some detail about exactly what I mean in this respect. But he mentioned father as the key word. He talked about paternalism. Well, the ultimate paternal father of the boy is the nation, is the community. And white men, and I think all of us on this channel, certainly in my life, I'm 40, I can never remember in my life a time when I was told as a white man to have pride in myself, ever. I was told the opposite. I was told that white men are the problem. I was told that masculinity is toxic. I was told that the founders of the United States were racist. And that culture has only gotten stronger and stronger and been weaponized in various iterations. Feminism was one version of it, wokeism. You can go on and on and on. And it has been institutionalized. So this is what you hear as a man in elementary school, middle school, graduate school, college. It doesn't matter whether you go into the police force, you're a fireman, you go into the military, you hear this kind of garbage, all right? It's a psychological pathogen. In any case, there are basically three underlying causes here, in addition to this sort of national crisis, this lack of a homeland, this lack of a place, lack of an identity, okay, as Huberman said. The first is economic. In 2008, we had a major financial crisis that did a lot of damage to people, and I just don't think a lot of people realize the extent to which that damage has been done. So I'm just going to give you some statistics here, okay? In terms of home ownership in the United States, 90% of all U.S. homes are owned by people over 40. 90%. 74% of U.S. homes are owned by people over 50, and 56% are owned by people over 60. Basically, if you're under 40 years old, you own nothing. You own nothing, okay? Now, obviously, if you own nothing, you don't really have any equity in the society, all right? So there's that problem. In addition to that, let's talk about actual spending. So what the real economy is, okay? Because you'll hear people say that 70% of the economy is consumer spending. Well, what is that? The top 50% in the United States own 94% of the assets. The top 10% own 33% of the assets, okay? The top 50% on the income bracket do 85% of consumption. Everybody else is broke. And the majority of them are young men and increasingly young white men. Now, in addition to that, about a third of these men are what we call sexless. Doesn't mean they're incels, doesn't mean they're weird, but they're broke, okay? They have no access whatsoever to the sexual marketplace. And in addition to that, females who represent community reject them because they've been poisoned with woke bullshit too. So they regard white men as the enemy. They openly disparage, attack, and undermine white men in their societies. And this is not unique to the United States. This is happening across the Western world. It's happening in France, Germany, Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera. However, as dark as those things are, about 10, 15 years ago, men began turning away from society because of this. And they ended up forming communities online. They found Rebecca's channel, they found Dave, they found Vince, et cetera, et cetera. And through these mechanisms, they began to figure shit out. They began to ask questions about why they're being disparaged. Where is this political correctness coming from? What is wokeism? Who really won the second war? Why are we defending Israel? So forth and so on. And what essentially has happened is that this alternative media complex have become what I call awareness machines. It's re-educated the young male population and basically stimulated this massive permutation in their thinking. For this reason, you have Nick Fuentes and the Gropers and Vince James, among others, okay? Basically what I'm saying, folks, is that you're about to see an explosion from young men because the nation has abandoned them. And their only recourse is to take that nation back. Mm-hmm. That's where we stand.
By the way, super chats we'll read at the end of the stream.
Send them in.
Send them in. I see some popping up, some dupes too.
Cameron, we will address those. Such a good analysis. Who is the hero in America to these young men? And for those young men that believe that it's Trump, how is this negatively affecting their behavior? I guess positively too, but mostly negatively.
Well, I mean, I think Dave and Vince can answer that question just as well as I can. I don't know who the heroes are. I don't think. I mean, look at the DC network, right? All these superheroes that are all woke, emasculated, effeminate, weirdos, or transgender freaks. Those aren't the heroes for young men, right? Mm-hmm. I have tried occasionally because I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I have friends who are, and I've seen cartoons today. I don't know, Rebecca, what cartoons you play for your kids. They're just bizarre. Yeah. I don't even understand them. I don't see any values. So I think the short answer is there aren't really any heroes. Trump has become sort of a rallying cry. I don't know that I would say that he's a hero, but I do think that Trump has inspired others to basically call out the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And that's a very, very good thing. But the answer is we are the heroes. We're figuring this out. We're ultimately going to have to take action. So it's us, right? Mm-hmm. We are Tyler Durden, as I often say to people, in a society where there are no heroes. And where there are no heroes, there is no nation. Right. There is no masculine.
Right. I mean, periodically somebody like Daniel Penny comes up. Is my audio playing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Something weird just happened. And when people are lionizing him, he just gets absolutely destroyed by the media, and they're unable to make him a hero in the way that he should be. But every once in a while, I see somebody like him. You know, he has the physiognomy of like a Greek god. I'm sure you've seen that meme. And he protected all these people on the subway. And every once in a while, something like this happens, and I'm like, this is the hero that we need. And then I watch this long process where everybody just tries to destroy him. I'm like, what is this teaching the youth of America, young white men of America, about their country? And I think that what it's teaching them is, you know, if somebody around you is in danger, you peel out and you save your own ass because it's not worth it.
Yep. It's happened time and time again, right? Kyle Rittenhouse. What was the couple that were holding the guns on the
McCloskey
front? The McCloskey family. I can't believe you remember that name.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. I follow him. He got elected to state legislature.
And was he in Missouri? Did he move? Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Yeah, the McCloskeys. It's happened so many. And by the way, this is what the reason why he gave such a great monologue on that is because this is what his entire channel is about. I mean, this is what he has tons of videos about this stuff. So make sure to check out Neo-Masculinity on YouTube. Make sure to give him a follow. Totally underrated. I mean, your videos are great. I watch every single one. I read all your Substacks too. So yeah, I mean, a great take on that. You know, it is interesting that this manosphere stuff is taking off for that very reason, right? Andrew Tate is popular for this very reason. People like Andrew Tate. This sort of content is popular for this very reason because a lot of young men they don't know who to turn to. A lot of them don't have a father figure in the home. A lot of them are irreligious, right? They don't have Jesus Christ to fill that hole, that emptiness that they feel in their soul. They don't have the camaraderie. They don't have an identity because it has been wiped from them. It has been stolen. It has been swiped from them. And anytime you express that identity, you know, you get hammered down. We talked about this with the gangs in Chicago and with the Great Migration of the blacks in the '60s and the desegregation, forced desegregation. A lot of the white people, you know, in Little Italy, where my parents grew up in, Bridgeport used to be totally Italian. Like a lot of those people, they got pushed out to the suburbs. They had their identity stripped from them. They were told that they have no culture, even though we hear a lot of people talk about Western culture. They never say what Western actually means, though. It means white. It's white culture.
Then their
That's where
religions were
Western
changed
culture
and
comes from.
attacked.
Right. And, you know, there was one time, though, I think a few years ago, where there was this article, and it was about it was the Smithsonian Museum came out with this thing that everyone was tweeting out and everyone was talking about. They were talking about what white culture is. Do you remember this? And they said it's focus on the scientific method. It's
trains running on time.
Yeah,
it's like math.
It's like working hard. It's math, and
it's having a well-cut lawn. I saw there's an article out there that having a neatly manicured lawn is white supremacy. It's out there.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people were saying, a lot of conservatives were saying like, "Whoa, that's not. Well, you're being racist." It's like, no, that literally is. Sam Huntington actually talked about this in his book. Who Are We? He talked about emphasis on the scientific method, work ethic, Protestant work ethic, things like this.
Yep.
And I'll say Irish work ethic, actually.
What are you
Irish?
talking about? Now, hey.
Yeah.
We need to take a break for a drink.
And so, you know, it's crazy because I have kids that are teenagers, right? All of my kids are teenagers. And there was a kid, actually, this has happened multiple times already, kids that they know at 12 years old committing suicide.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. I didn't want to
suicide.
like blow this up on the stream or anything like that. 12-year-olds committing suicide, dude. That is fucking crazy.
Right.
So like,
and it's not isolated. This is happening at schools all over the country, and it's being swept under the rug.
Yeah.
They are absolutely terrified that parents will talk with each other. There was a story that I did too about a woman whose daughter had cut her face up like the Joker. After like a month of public school.
That's going on. Dude, when I was a kid, parents, like, I would like cause like chaos I would cause shit in the neighborhood or whatever. Like when we were kids, we used to go egging, you know, shaving creams for Halloween, you know, like shit like that. There's like rambunctious activities, right, as a boy outside. And you would get like the neighborhood mom that would like tell my mom, I saw your kid like doing this or doing that. Like that shit doesn't exist anymore. That community, and it's because the homogeneity doesn't exist anymore. Right. And another great book, Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. You know, he talks about this and this how this relates to identity. In fact, there was a New York Times article in the early 2000s that was written about his study, which was the largest study ever done on civic engagement. And the headline from the New York Times is diversity is not a. I used to have
Didn't
this
they
memorized.
destroy his life and then discredit him?
No, they actually like boosted in 2007. They boosted
something
his
happened
book.
with that study back in the day, where he came to different conclusions based on it was totally divergent from the information that he had.
Yeah, because that's how they do it, right? They try to push them to have these a different conclusion from the information, from the data, from the statistics.
I'm pretty sure he acquiesced.
He probably did.
I might be wrong about that.
But the New York Times wrote this article, and in the first paragraph, I think it said something to the effect of, the headline was called "The Downside of Diversity." That's what the headline was from the New York Times. And in the very first there it is. Yeah, it's probably going to give you a paywall. But in the second paragraph, it says a massive new study shows that actually diversity is. Oh yeah, it is archived. Someone did archive it. A bunch of people archived it. Yeah, there it is. The second, if you want to read that, Dave.
Which one? The first one? It
the
is becoming
second paragraph. It said
a massive new study based on detailed interviews of nearly 30,000 people from across America has concluded just the opposite. Harvard political scientist Robert Putnam, famous for Bowling Alone, his 2000 book on declining civic engagement, has found that the greater the diversity in a community, the fewer people vote and the less they volunteer. The less they give to charity, work on community projects. In the most diverse communities, neighbors trust one another about half as much as they do in the most homogeneous settings. The study, the largest ever on civic engagement in America, found that virtually all measures of civic health are lower in more diverse settings.
And that's it. And that's the missing piece to the puzzle. You cannot manufacture a sense of identity from a global catastrophic event. You cannot manufacture a sense of identity from a war like they tried to do with 9/11. You cannot or for like some tragedy like they did with 9/11, or a war like they did the war in Iraq. You cannot permanently manufacture an identity from the creed or what you think is going to boost people's patriotism. It's just not going to happen. Identity comes from a nation, and a nation comes from the people. I mean, it's just that simple.
But these people are
that's exactly right.
Developing their identities entirely based on their race, because presumably these were in ethnically homogenous parts of the United States. So it's not like these people in Chinatown had a high trust society because they fall underneath the American Constitution, and then it's racial. This whole thing is racial.
Well, the people in Chinatown in Chicago, which we stayed in recently, certainly don't trust because of the surrounding black neighborhoods, but maybe in their own neighborhood, I don't know. But
right.
See, Chinatown was able to live on, right? Chinatown's able to live on. The Mexican neighborhoods are able to exist. The black neighborhoods are able to exist. Everyone except for white people. And so it is white people that are having these issues like Cam was talking about.
So the obvious solution is to develop a cohesive white pride. It's the only solution to this.
Well, we just have to tell people like, hey, look, you were lied to.
Yeah.
And you should be proud of who you are. Mm-hmm. You should, reestablish your, it's very hard to do in a country like this, but you got to find God. Would be my
the sentimentality that you speak of, Rebecca, in terms of feeling a sense of self-worth and pride and so forth. Obviously, that's sort of a spiritual development. It transcends some government program or something of that nature. That being said, another force that manufactured it is crisis, is conflict. And we've got it. We've got both. And that, to some degree, is why these men, as I said, have sort of funneled into these online communities. They're looking for others like them. And that's ultimately what the manosphere is, okay? And that's blending with, as I've written before, with the Bitcoin community. Who the hell do you think the Bitcoin community is? It's men who know the financial system is broken and bankrupt, okay? That's blending with Christian nationalism, which is what Vince and Dave and you talk about. It's all sort of coagulating together, but it's happening with young men. The question is, when is that going to hit a critical mass? I think we're getting closer. And my own thesis is that I think when it becomes clear that Donald Trump is not the panacea that everybody thinks he is, I think that's when people are really going to kick into gear and realize, oh shit, we can't bail out the legacy system. We're going to have to solve this ourselves. That's ultimately the mission for young men, It's to clean up the mess. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Do you think that there is a different Arab mentality and Russian mentality? Because in Russia, there kind of is this Putin as the father figure, and it seems like their culture is much more cohesive. And I'm also, although the Arab world is largely a disaster, I think that they do have like a more refined sense of masculinity in many ways, probably because they're not facing the same kind of racial propaganda. But what do you think about that?
I wouldn't attribute it to masculinity. A lot of people do that. There's a saying in the Arab world, me against my brother, me and my brother against my cousin, me and my brother and my cousin against the world. It's tribal. It's tribalism. When you travel throughout the world, whether you go to China or India, the reality is that people do not really gel in most societies. They're very tribal. They stick to their caste or their family, et cetera, et cetera. White countries, Western countries are different because we have individualism. It does not mean that we aren't tribal as well. As we discussed in the last episode, what do white people do? They self-segregate. They're just polite about it. They're not up front, and they're afraid of the government. That being said, there is this tendency that's very dangerous among us to sort of go our own way. I'm going to get mine, man. And that's got to stop. We have to cooperate with one another, and that demands leadership. It also demands, I think, a critical mass that realize that we're in an existential crisis. The group of men that I'm talking about that have woken up, they are a minority. They're not the majority of the population, but that minority is growing, and it's growing very quickly. That's going to create the kind of masculine force that you're seeing. And as Vince said, that's exactly why Andrew Tate and the Manosphere and a lot of these characters have gained such traction, because there's so much hunger for that masculine impulse in the Western world. But let's be clear, if you go that route, what happens to you? You lose your job, you get censored, right? Or you have false allegations leveled against you. These are the things that have really bullied and kowtowed people. And the only way to fight that is to organize yourself. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're beginning to do. That's what our show is about, right?
The TikTok is a big thing for young people.
Yeah.
And there's a thing that's going on right now with TikTok, and they basically are forcing them to sell it, or it's going to be banned in the U.S. I think it's going to happen as early as January 19th, I think is the date. It doesn't look like they have any buyers lined up for this. So it looks like they're just going to straight up ban it in the U.S. And one of the reason that we keep seeing pop up about TikTok being banned is because people are becoming, quote unquote, anti-Semitic. I think Nikki Haley, who, by the way, under the Trump administration said, we were talking about Syria earlier, she said that we're never going to have any peace in the Middle East at all with Assad in power in Syria. Mm-hmm. This is a quote. It was actually in a Guardian article and about Syria. And I think there was something else that she said about social media in that same article. But later, I mean, just like last year, I think it was, she came out and she said that watching TikTok makes you 17%. Every minute you watch TikTok makes you 17% more anti-Semitic. Is that what she said? She said something like that. She said that. And now we're seeing this. I mean, this is what many politicians have said is the reason for why we need to get rid of TikTok. It has nothing to do with the foreign, they try to play this off as like, oh, China, China's dangerous. China, we can't have anything happen, like China in control of anything. It's like they don't care about that. They've never cared about that. They care about the effect that it's having on the young, because it's young people primarily that watch TikTok and they see clips of Andrew Tate. They see clips of Sneeko. They see stuff in the manosphere. They see this stuff, and then that leads them to other stuff. And then eventually they're creating X accounts and they're seeing our show. So this is they're going to try to get it under control. I think the cat's out of the bag at this point.
Yeah.
And they say when 10% of the population believes in something, that eventually it becomes 100% of the population. But you have to find out what that breaking point is.
Right. There's an interesting.
There was go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry. I've talked a lot. Go.
No, it's okay. I mean, I don't know how. This is
Go
from a
ahead.
very obscure book that I found in my research about local politics, because North Idaho was very involved with the unions and union busting. And what's really interesting is this last paragraph of this book, Two Evil Isms. He talks about how the secret of his company in downing the unions was the mixing of nationalities in the coal camps, that the unions cannot hold peoples from different countries together into a solid mass.
Yeah, there was a study that was done about how unions were being broken up because of diversity.
Yes, I've heard about this
Yeah.
somewhere. And then
I talked about that in my show like 8 years ago. Or
there
something
were
like that.
there were people whose entire job was to communicate between these racial groups within unions, and they found that you could have two languages, but once you had a third language enter a union or a fourth, that the union would end up dissolving because they couldn't find any common ground at all, and there was nobody to tell them, what they had in common or why they should be on the same team.
Ironically, Democrats support unions. I mean, anyway, at least, yeah.
No, it's true. It's a good reference, Dave. There's another book that is totally different, but somewhat related to the general point. It's called As Nature Made Him. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was written by John Calapinto, but it was about a guy named David Reimer, whose parents were told by a doctor when he was born with an oblated penis. And so the doctor, when he was born, who I think was Jewish, if I recall correctly, basically said, oh, gender's a social construct. So they raised him as a girl. They gave him dresses. They socialized him accordingly. They gave him dolls, so forth and so on. And this poor guy, who was also, I believe, a schizophrenic, just had a nervous breakdown. But by the time he was 15 or 16, he rejected it because he kept saying, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. And he eventually reverted back to his gender. Now, I think the story ended tragically. I think he eventually committed suicide later in his life. But the point is that the socialization, it doubly goes for propaganda. It doesn't work. It causes that reversion. And that's precisely what you're seeing from young men. The more you feminize, the more you try to emasculate them, the more you try to poison them with multiculturalism and the rest of it, what do? The harder they reject it. And that's exactly what I think we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, for a while, they sort of like brainwashed a lot of people, but I think with social media, and this is what we talked about last week with the Unabomber stuff, like I think because of social media, a lot of people have broken out of it. A lot of people are starting to find out the truth about a lot of these things, and they're going to try to censor. They're going to try to control. I think for the most part, they have a lot of these social media sites on lockdown, except for a few. But it's just not. I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, look at what we were talking
Candace
about this.
Owens.
I was just about to say, look at what just happened this week with Candace Owens.
But why are they letting her? It seems to me like she has completely gone rogue. I mean,
Who's they? YouTube?
I don't know.
Well, maybe
her
she's
handlers.
just too big of an. They don't want, what happened in 2019 when all of this got purged.
For those of you that aren't aware, Candace Owens put out a video yesterday that was brilliantly entitled "A Personal Story" or something like that. It wasn't a personal story. She immediately cut to an interview that Vince has actually interviewed. A survivor,
Phil Turney
from the USS Liberty, where he recounts the whole story and how he's certain it was a deliberate attack by Israel. Now, amongst right-wing circles, we've been talking about this for a decade, more. People have known about this, that we've known every detail. We didn't hear anything new from Phil Turney that we hadn't already heard in the last 10 years in the dissident right. However, it was shocking to me to see this on Candace Owens' channel. It got 2 million views, or I think it's up beyond that now. Mm-hmm. It was being so widely, I think it was trending on Twitter. And then at the end, she says, she truly apologizes for her association with Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. And then she vows to give the USS Liberty Survivors Organization, whatever it is called, $40,000 a year until the last one dies. Yes. And I think that was a really powerful moment, because she's saying, I'm sorry that I used to be a Zionist, that I took money from these people and now I want to
All
give
right, you
some
guys,
of that
I'll
money
get right.
back. And that was just, it was just incredible for me to watch because it's so vindicating to have these stories be brought into the mainstream. I mean, she's incredibly mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, I was just showing 2.1 million views in a day on the USS Liberty.
It's just incredible.
Nobody has had that kind of an impact on spreading that story that I'm aware of. I actually got into a fight with a DC lobbyist that a lot of people in the state of Idaho know. It's actually one of the reasons why I got fired from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, is because I sat down and it was like, are you like completely unaware of the USS Liberty? Have you've
Canceled.
never heard of it before? And they're like, that's Nazi propaganda. And I'm like, no, it's not. And I pull up the Wikipedia and I'm like, they killed our men.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. It was bad. It was very
literally
bad.
all of the
Instantly they turned
survivors-
purple.
All of
Anyway.
the survivors
I've talked to
are in
multiple
agreement,
of
yeah.
them. All of them are in agreement. It was an intentional attack. And if,
Yes.
and if not the USS Liberty, then what about the Levant affair? What about the Apollo affair? What about the barracks bombing? What about, I mean, you could just go on
King
and
David
on.
Hotel.
Are all of those anti-Semitic Nazi propaganda? No, they're definitely absolutely not. YouTube's on lock. I don't know why they let this trend. TikTok straight up, like, there's like 10 million views I saw the other day, and you have to train yourself to get these sorts of videos in your feed, or you have to train your own personal algorithm to get these sorts of videos in your feed. And they recently changed the algorithm, which I don't know what that's about. But there are straight up like videos of like Hitler speeches getting like 10 million views that are translated into English. Like, this is why they're like so upset about TikTok. And these are like 13-year-old kids, 14-year-old kids watching like translated Hitler speeches. Or do you remember the letter to Bin Laden's letter to America, where he talked about Zionists?
That's
Remember?
right.
That's what started this whole thing. That went like super viral. There was like 10 billion views or something like that on this trend.
There's only like 6 billion people on the
and they're like, well, people watch the videos over and
over
again.
again. Yeah.
That's why TikTok pushes so much content, because they want like
Brain rot.
It's brain rot. I'm kind of brain rotted, but that's why they want to go after that platform so hard. That's why they're forcing. It's just like with the universities, right? How much anti-white shit has been happening at universities, right? Like Cameron has been talking about. How long have I been talking about this? Like, there's a viral clip that people post every now and again, right? Of all of these articles I just read from like 2016, 2017, like talking about white people, what's happening at universities. People supercut it, put it up there. People share it all the time. Like, all this stuff has been going on at these universities for a long time. No one said shit about it. Mm-hmm. No one cared. And then the moment that there's some sort of like anti-Semitic rhetoric happening on university campuses, they get congressional hearings within a matter of days. And then they get university leaders replaced within a matter of weeks. Mm-hmm. Replaced, by the way, like Harvard was Alan Garber, I forget his name, a Jewish guy. Right. So it's like they have to try to lock down everything, but it's like hitting moles. It's like playing that game whack-a-mole, right? You're eventually you're not going to be able to get all of them. And like something like October 7th went completely in a different direction than they thought it would in terms of narrative control. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a lot more shit like this.
But that's how it always ends, with hubris.
Right. I mean, they just have this like he was talking about, like Cam was talking about, myopic sort of like, tunnel vision that they don't care. Yeah. They don't care, and they just keep doing it over and over. Go ahead, Cam.
We'll just offer a more macro perspective on this, because it's just difficult. It is for all of us to have a broader ken of things, because we all have our choice videos and content and the things that we read and so forth. But I think there are two things that are happening right now that are headed for a major collision on this issue. The first is that the Zionist control of the West, as I said earlier, has completely consolidated. All right. I mean, the Israelis, as we know, are murdering people in cold blood as we speak in Gaza, and the Western nations who preside over the UN and the International Criminal Court and so forth, they say nothing about it. Now, Everybody knows why they say nothing about it. However, at the same time that the political structures of all these Western countries have been completely hollowed out by these people, the awareness of Zionism is surging everywhere. It's surging in Asia. It's surging in Latin America. It's surging in the United States and Europe. And eventually these two forces are going to converge. And my guess is they're going to converge when something goes horribly wrong overseas that these people have engineered. And I think we're knocking on the door of something like that.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
You guys want to do some super chats?
Let's
Should
do
we round
some
it
super
out?
chats.
Power chats? Why do I keep saying that?
Power chats. You can get your last minute ones in at powerchat.live/the backlash.
I'm like choking.
Great.
On liquid.
If you choked to death on stream, we would get so many power chats.
We get so many views.
I wouldn't help you either. Ked Dad asks, Vince, what are your thoughts on Wife Jack?
Yeah, so he sent that multiple times.
We'll send your money back, buddy. Let us know.
I don't know. I think it's kind of a stupid meme, but
It's a little cute.
is it?
It's kind of cute. I've seen some wife jacks where I'm like,
Oh, the memes are cute?
yeah.
But what about the idea behind it? Like
being married is gay.
what is the idea? By the way, what even is? I just didn't have time to like completely look into it. What is the
I thought
message?
it was the wife jack was the meme of the chick with brown hair, like you're.
No, it is. But what is the message like? Oh, wife jack is because you can't just be like a dominating dude. Like you have to have.
It's supposed to be like those cute, endearing things that your wife does, but like also everyone's wife does it.
Oh, right.
Where it's like, honey, I just saved $500 by shopping on Amazon Black Friday. How much did you spend? $3,000. Like, what the fuck? Pardon me, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I shouldn't have sworn. That was so stupid.
Yeah, no. If that's it, then it's retarded.
Yeah, that's basically it. There was one meme, like on the car, where like the kids were bouncing off the ceiling of the car, and like as a parent, I saw that one and it was okay because you know how absolutely ridiculous it is driving around with kids that need to eat or whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, it strikes me as like a giant simp fest and like a de-radicalization meme. I don't know.
I thought it was just a way for people to complain about their wives, which is good.
Maybe we're just too old. We might be too old.
We
to
might be too old to
that.
understand.
We don't get
although
it.
I didn't look at it, so I didn't really look into it. So.
Richard Spencer did like a 30-minute podcast about
I don't want
the
to
wife
listen to that
jack
at all.
meme.
Oh, really?
You don't want to listen to that?
Not really.
Oh, so I'll tell him that we don't want to bring him on the podcast then.
Richard Spencer?
Yeah.
We're gonna try to get Phil Turney next week, though.
Yeah, do you guys want Phil Turney?
Yes.
We'll try to get him.
We've got to build like a big deck, by the way, of all the people that we're going to bring on. Because like I've got a long list
You
of
know
people
what I'm going to say
that I want to
here.
bring on.
We got to bring some people in
Put
IRL.
it in the outline. There's a spot on the outline.
No, we need more shows. We need to do more shows a week.
Okay, we can talk about this
We'll
later.
figure this out. The one thing I will say is that like obviously like marriage is like a compromise to a big degree, right? You always have to there's a lot of compromise, right? It's it's not well, you know, I mean, we could talk shit, we can meme and shit like that, but there's a lot of compromise. And you know, one of the things is that like people just give up too easy.
Yeah.
There's so much divorce because they have that in their back pocket.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is women, right? That you have that in your back pocket, right? Divorce, because it's accepted now.
Right.
It's normalized, just like every damaging, poisonous thing that has been normalized, from porn to drugs to this to that. That's been normalized, and you know, so you got that. Abortion, another thing, right?
Yeah.
They got that in their back pocket. If things don't go the way that I wanted to, exactly how I wanted to, and you know, this guy's not the love of my life, and always
yeah.
The Disney
forever.
princess syndrome.
The soulmate thing has destroyed women. It's like your husband is not your soulmate. It's the person that agreed to be with you no matter what, and you agreed to be with him no matter what, so that you didn't fuck up your children.
That's the whole
with
point.
your divorce. That's the whole point. Everyone's like, well, he's not filling this need blood. It's like, nobody cares about your
Nonsense.
needs.
That's
Is he
literally what all
putting the
women
lights
say.
on?
All women say, and for the guys who are married out there, here's the thing. Use social media to your advantage. Send your wife videos of the fucking stupid things, the things that guys do, right? Because to a big degree, guys are all the same, right? When you, like, my wife will send me shit, like she'll send me a video or something of this dude, like recently, she sent me a video of this dude cleaning the house, asking, then like asking his wife to go golfing or whatever. Like a fucking shit ton of guys do that shit, okay? Like, guys are pretty much all the same. Girls, women are pretty much all the same. Their big complaint is, he's not emotional. He doesn't come and hug me every day. He doesn't. And so, like, if you want to avoid this, just make sure that your wife understands that guys are all the same, and make sure you understand that women are basically all the same. And they think the same, they act the same, they have the same complaints. And by the way, that's like the top complaint for women, is that he wasn't emotionally connected to me enough.
Yes, and if that is a problem in your marriage, then you need to have a lot of female friends.
Yeah,
that's the
a
way to
female
deal with
trait.
that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, not only that, but also marriage has been changed and deconstructed in the society to a large degree. And even in the wake of the Second Vatican Council, the church has gotten kind of confused about it because the primary reason that you get married to someone is to procreate and educate your children in the faith. Yeah. That is the purpose of it. Like maybe you're infertile, you can't have kids. Then secondarily, there's also this element within marriage of mutual companionship, mutual aid one to another.
That's not the point. I mean,
but that's not the primary point.
In
And
era,
Disney,
families would just decide to get married to elevate both their social statuses, and then the people would grow to tolerate each other.
Yeah,
and those need to be the expectations of marriage. Like, you're not going to meet all of your needs. Like, women need to be having sex with their husbands.
Frankly, your expectation of marriage, if I may,
it's too high.
expect to be crucified, because that's what marriage is. Marriage is a crucifixion. You could look at like an image of
this is crazy.
The man and the woman's hand nailed right over Jesus' hand, and that's the same.
Your point is well taken.
Eve is always.
Oh my God! You guys.
He's always corrupting the relationship.
Marriage is martyrdom.
Yes.
For children. That is what it is.
No, it's for the husband and wife.
No, it's martyrdom.
Like, you marry your cross. My wife is my cross.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I am her cross.
It's martyrdom for the parents.
Could you imagine being married
for the purpose of having children, right?
Yeah.
And once you go in with that expectation, like okay, I'm gonna have my hobbies
but
and my friends.
But you're going into marriage with this. I mean.
But then people do that, and then
like,
when the kids turn 18, they'll get divorced. Like, I know some people who have done that.
Not if they've fostered a healthy codependency.
Listen, if you're not married yet.
It's the women who have this like crazy high expectation, this crazy high emotional expectation. You know, one thing that I think is brainwashing women? True crime. This true crime shit.
Because we all know how to kill our husbands now?
No, because they're all addicted to it, and it always... There's a lot of little things that they put in there that like brainwash chicks to have like this like crazy emotional expectation in these true crime.
I am totally addicted to true crime, and I am. Like,
I know you are. I didn't even have to
based.
know that, but I already know.
Like to know. Okay, what I've learned from true crime though is that marriages almost never survive an affair, and you cannot kill your spouse without getting caught in this day and age. You can't do it. If you're thinking about killing your spouse. Everybody does. It's okay, and you're going to get caught.
So here's the thing: if you're not married yet, but you're wanting to get married, have a talk with the woman you want to get married to about why she wants to get married.
Right.
Find out what she has in her head, what her expectations are, and then systematically beat them into the ground. Lower her expectations.
Yeah, be like, hey, if you're cold, just tell me you want a blanket. Don't say I'm cold and then expect me to bring you a blanket. Just expect me to mind read.
Don't put your feet on the small of my back.
All chicks are like that.
You know what I mean?
All chicks are like that.
But because getting married is like a part of nation building, if you think about it, right? There was that guy that you interviewed on your channel, right? If you have 8 kids and your 8 kids have 8 kids, within 8 generations, you'll have 16 million living descendants.
Malcolm Collins, right? Yeah.
And so this idea of like when you are looking at a woman, you should definitely have a conversation about what it is that you're trying to do. Are you trying to live happily ever after and whatever? Or are you trying to build a nation, build an army of people that are going to sit there and be there when you're gone and continue to fight for what you want.
Okay,
That's the point.
You know how
of
we
marriage.
stopped
Let me
fatherlessness
weave.
and divorce?
Let me weave here back
No,
into
we
the
need
previous
to.
conversation.
You need to get in the kitchen.
I'm hungry. Make me
Get
a
off
sandwich.
of this table and go in the upstairs and
I
go
will
to the
do
kitchen.
no such thing. I've already made
Maybe
dinner,
if she-
cleaned my house.
We
This is
need
my
to
time
remove
away
the
from my
freedoms
kids.
from
Maybe
women to
if
be
she
able to
gets-
stop this divorce epidemic and stop this.
No,
Maybe if she
I
gets
can
on the
stop.
table, we'll get more power.
I can stop the divorce epidemic right now if you wangs will just listen to me about this. All right, the reason that people are getting divorced so much is, because women are allowed to, but it's also because egalitarianism has destroyed the way that men and women interact. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are in marriages and the woman ends up having to cook, clean, and rear children, but also bring in income. And then there's immediate resentment starting to build.
Yeah.
And this is why women, I understand why men hate women, but people are not listening at all to why women hate men. And part of that reason is that we're not getting our stability or providership given to us, even within the confines of a stable, functional marriage that was built on the pretense of not being egalitarian. And I know a lot of women that are like this. They're like, this is so fucked up. I do all the stuff. I do all the stuff, and I don't have any money. That's just domestic servitude. And that's a situation that dissident right women are ending up in when they get married.
Well,
That's because-
everyone works hard and doesn't have any money. At least it's my story. We both work hard and we don't have any money. But yeah, anyway.
We were doing super chats. My bad.
Go ahead.
Sorry
We
about
can
that
continue.
brief.
Sorry. Cameron, do you want to say anything? You're just
Cameron's
watching.
like,
He's
Shut
just
up.
married. He doesn't, come on. No.
I'm happy to say I know absolutely nothing about what you speak.
Bravo.
But I support marriage. From
Well
a
done.
distance.
Cat Dad said, "Merry Christmas." Thank
Merry
you very
Christmas.
much for the
Cat
super
Dad,
chat.
shoot us an email because you sent a lot of duplicates in, so I don't actually know how many came through.
You can
Sometimes
send.
the dupes are fake, though. Sometimes they show up and they're not actually real.
Oh, okay. So check your bank statement, and if you
Yeah.
accidentally sent too much money, we'd be happy to send some of that back.
And you can email us at info@thebacklash.net. There's also
.net?
thebacklash.net.
Oh.
Have you been telling people .com?
No.
Okay.
.org?
Backlash.net.
No, that sounds right. I've been saying it right.
Backlash. Thebacklash.net. Somebody can put it in the chat. And you can also send us emails and subscribe there. We'll have some content coming out soon.
Man,
Tree-
I hope my
Yeah, I
husband
just-
does not watch this.
Just wanted to say real quick too, please give a special thanks to Dave for setting all of this up because I am clownishly stupid when it comes to anything technical. So
Stop
Dave,
it.
I salute you for
Salute.
setting
Totally.
everything up.
Yeah, Dave's been doing a killer job. Every week the show's been getting better. The video and the audio has been great this week. You've been fixing all the bugs. You're doing a great job.
By the end of the month, we're going to be, I think, on a 3-camera setup with multiple TVs. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Tree of
When
Liberty.
are you guys when are you going to put the water bed in the back? Because I'm waiting for that when I come on set.
The younger viewers won't even know what you're talking about. That was
Yeah,
a big
really.
trend in like the late 90s.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Tree of Liberty, Jay says, "Merry Christmas, everyone, especially the crew on Telegram."
Oh, thank you guys. I love my crew on Telegram. You guys have been so helpful in launching the show, giving me ideas, giving me feedback that I always incorporate into the subsequent episodes. So feel free to keep me on track, guys. I appreciate it.
Big Mad Lad said for $5, a large reason the Jays have a stranglehold on power on the right is because evangelical Christian dispensationalists, which are a huge Republican voting bloc, feverishly supporting Israel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, before the Schofield Bible, though, came Vatican II and came the 60s revolution, and I think they have a stranglehold for a lot of reasons, but yeah.
Yep.
There's a good book. Just real quick, Dave. There's a good book called "The Jesus Machine" to whoever submitted that super chat. That's worth reading because it's basically an investigation into how the Zionists penetrated, focused on the family in particular, and James Dobson, who once really the anchor of the Bush administration and the evangelicals who got him elected twice. But they went out there, and one thing to note on this is, other than the white supremacists, okay, they fear the evangelicals. And that comes across in that book. So take a read through it because it's not everything that you think.
And it's so stupid too, because the evangelicals themselves, like the Dispy evangelicals, believe that
In the end,
like half of all of the Jews in Israel are going to die in this giant battle of Armageddon. And they're like actively working to bring that about.
Right.
And it's like, you're calling me an anti-Semite. Like you're working to get half of all of them killed. Like, what's wrong with you? Anyway, big problem. We're dealing with it. Big Mad Lad had a 2-2. They see the modern Israel as ushering in Christ's return, which they believe is imminent. It's critical to change their support of at least Jewish power in America to retake the right. Yeah, we have to work on the evangelicals. They are our brothers, and they've been misled and lied to by people that they were supposed to be able to trust, their pastors. Lied to them and used them and abused them and has been milking them like cows for all of their money while their grandchildren are transed in American public schools. So,
yeah, well, they probably shouldn't be heretics. How about that?
Big Mad Lad, $5 said, sorry, I think I sent those in the wrong order. It's okay. We figured it out. Kez Dad said Daniel Penny is better than Luigi Mangione. Mansion. He said mansion, but it's not mansion.
I'm with you there.
Mangione. Did I tell you my cousin married into the Mangione family?
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
I think I said that the first time.
That's interesting.
And yeah, he actually dropped his last name to take their last name.
Oh.
And it's like, man, I bet you wish you hadn't.
Yeah,
at this
really.
Point. You know what I mean? Anyway.
What a beta. What a beta.
I know, what
beta,
a bitch move.
beta move.
Total bitch move.
Bill Biz said, greetings from Bainbridge Island. Nice to experience a little Coeur d'Alene sanity.
I love Bainbridge. Who has been to Bainbridge Island? It is so amazing and
Where's
beautiful
that?
and picturesque. It's an island off of Seattle. It's by Orca Island.
Was that by Whidbey Island?
And yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
By Whidbey. I wonder if anything interesting ever happened out
Close
on
to Vashon.
Whidbey Island.
The invention of pickleball.
Ked's dad said Bald Vince is hard AF and beautiful.
He's got a head shape for baldness.
Yeah,
you know?
but the glare is bothering me.
I will say that your bald head shape is better than Mark Andreessen's.
And then when we get people like next to us saying like, we gotta increase white pride, and then I'm like bald. It's not.
It doesn't look good.
No,
it doesn't look
baldness
good.
is caused by a surge of testosterone. It's caused by having high testosterone.
I don't
can't
think
explain
that's true.
Brian Stelter. I can't explain it.
I was gonna say that's what I said in the beginning. I said Brian Stelter's bald. There's a bunch of like
Patrick
really
Stewart,
weak gay people that are bald.
I don't know what to tell you. That's what it. Women like to see a bald man. There's nothing wrong with being bald.
You sure about that?
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
I think they like to see hair.
Have you ever
They like
seen
to see full heads of hair. In fact, I might go and help Erdogan so that he can give me some hair plugs for free.
I was gonna say
Turkey.
Those Turkish hair plugs are so good.
Speaking of
I
brain
know.
rot, have you guys seen the videos of the Japanese toupees, the custom toupees?
Yes, I have. Yes.
My wife actually sent me. I was like, I'm not wearing a fucking toupee. People are gonna be like. She's like, oh, you should try this. I was like, no, I'm not trying that.
Oh my God, I would pay
if I
so
wore
much money.
like people would be like, what the fuck? Where'd you get hair from?
You just show up to golf
Like,
with my
where-
husband and you have like a full
Right.
set. He'd be like,
He's like, where the fuck did you get hair from all of a sudden? Like, oh, I could grow it the whole time.
yeah.
Like,
I was
I
just
just
shaving my
didn't watch
head
it.
because I look tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ed Powell for $10. Be honest,
Ed.
isn't Rebecca having a really good hair day
Thank
today?
you so much. I based on one YouTube comment that said that my side swept bangs made me look older, I have revamped my whole image. This is how female vanity works. Like one negative comment and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna change everything. All right.
Sounds like a wife Jack enjoyer, that super chatter, by the way.
Well, I love you, Ed. Thank you.
Midnight Sun sent $5 and said, since 2011, the majority of births have been non-white, and by 2035, people of color will dominate all positions in power and government. How can we deal with and prevent future hostile settlement, including forced redistribution of wealth and collectivism?
Well, the problem is that it's like Cam says all the time, like we have to build something new. We have to build a new party or a new caucus that represents our interests because the Republican Party, because of the diversification of America, the Republican Party, in order to win elections, basically have to become Democrats, right? You go back to George Bush, the election of George Bush. The reason why he won 45% of the Hispanic vote, which was the most ever all the way up until Trump won about 44% of the Hispanic vote, is because he promised amnesty, right? And so in order to get the votes of all of these different types of people, the Republicans basically have to become Democrats. They have to stop talking about immigration. They have to stop talking about all of these different things that white conservatives used to agree with, you know, anti-gun control, free speech, all these different things, these things that come, that stem, that are birthed from Western culture. Republicans have to become Democrats to win elections eventually. So they basically have at this point. They're even giving up on abortion. I mean, this is the one thing that they held on to, which is the reason why they won in the Supreme Court. And now they're sort of backtracking from it because states like Idaho are going to hardcore for their, you know, according to them. So something needs to, as this collapse happens, something new needs to arise from its ashes, which I think that we're doing a good job preparing for, and fill the vacuum. So,
Look, just on this question, because it is a good question, but implicit in the question is the doomerism. The problem is the solution. More of these people having more kids causes awareness. And my guess is that this person, anecdotally or otherwise, has experienced it. I've seen white people get red-pilled before when they move into the wrong neighborhood, and then boom, all of a sudden the light switch goes on. I just watched an interview with Donald Trump on, I think it was on CNBC, with that, she's like Asian or black, I don't know what she is. But anyway, she was interviewing Donald Trump, and Trump said categorically, yeah, we got to send everybody back. Now, everybody knows that I don't like Donald Trump, or at least if you're watching this channel, you know I don't like Donald Trump. But how did we even get here? 8 years ago, saying such a thing was impossible. Here we are, okay? So we're already moving in the right direction, folks. We don't need to figure out the why anymore. We need to figure out the how.
Yeah.
And that's the next step.
you say you don't like Donald Trump, but do you think that any of this would be possible without his first run?
No. And Donald Trump deserves a lot of credit because unlike a lot of his class, he stepped forward, he demonstrated some courage, and he told the truth. Now, again, I can quibble with how he did it, but no, you're exactly right, Vince, and I've always given Donald Trump credit for that. Look, if you exercise courage, you know, I say this about Andrew Tate and all that. There's a lot of people that hate Andrew Tate or hate this person, whatever. If you have courage and you speak with conviction from your heart against power, you have my respect. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did. He's a flawed man. We're all flawed. My only point about Trump is he's not the man for the job. And that's going to become very, very clear in the months ahead. It's us. It's our responsibility to solve this. Nobody's going to do it for us, folks.
Right. Not going to be any savior. QAnon is not.
Nope.
One of the other things that I guess I wanted to say about that question, I was looking for a clip, I couldn't find it, but is your church communities at home. I mean, like, I don't know where everyone goes. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you are at least, you've got some idea, or you've got a church or something. I don't really care if it's Catholic or not.
Get them
at
together.
This point.
We went to something.
But, well, I mean,
we went to
there was a
meeting.
little underground meeting of Catholic resistance in Chicago that's aware of how bad the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago is, and is seeing the problems in the churches, the invasion that's happening in the pews, the lack of birth rates, the changing of the mass, bringing in, homosexuals to wave pride flags around during mass. And they're upset about it. They're getting together. They're mobilizing. And I really think that the way forward is a kind of model of this Christian nationalism, whether it's Protestant, Reformed, Catholic, whatever, but this idea that the nation has to answer to God for the natural law.
Yes.
That is definitely the way forward as far as political ideology goes. And I think the best way to accomplish that is by mobilizing churches, by mobilizing your local faith community, by, telling your pastor, hey, are you aware of these issues that are going on right now? Will you preach about pornography? Will you preach about the false idol of Israel and Zionism? Will you preach about the modern false idol of racism? I mean, not once in the Bible is racism ever mentioned as a sin. In fact, it's encouraged in the Old Testament. Not that being racist is good. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I think that that's the way forward. Mobilize your faith community, mobilize your churches, get them organized, create business leagues, find all of the people at your church that own a business, get them together, make a political pact.
Stop bowling alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I emailed my priest. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Vince.
No, I was just going to say, I emailed my priest during COVID. I was like upset with him because I was in California still. And I was like mad. Like he wasn't like, he was still making everyone wear masks and shit. And so I think it's super important. I just bought a book called
Navigating the Crisis in the Catholic Church.
Navigating the Crisis in the Catholic Church. And it's a very small author. And if you're Catholic, make sure to buy his book. It's a really, really good book. And he's not like a New York Times, but like he's a very small author. But it's a great book. And you can find it on Amazon.
By Stephen Coates.
Stephen Coates.
He's an author over at LifeSite News. Very good guy.
So I bought one. My sister's a nun. Most people don't know this. She's an actual nun. Yeah. And so I bought two, and I'm going to send her one. And I think it's important. I think it's important to, because a lot of priests actually like literally don't even know. Like they've been brainwashed too.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know a lot of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had some success in telling some people certain things, and so we'll see what happens. Anyway, go ahead, Cam. I cut you off there.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo and build on just for a moment what Dave said. A lot of people, I have had this conversation so many times, it just makes me blue in the face. But people will say, "What is the right? You know, what is it? The right is two things. It is Christian nationalism and white nationalism. Blending those two things together is the project that we are engaged upon right now. Those two things equal America." And Dave's exactly right. Without the Great Awakenings, and we had multiple Great Awakenings, we would have no nation. So what he's talking about, working through church groups and so forth. One other thing, what can you do if you are listening to this? 3 things. Build community, which involves exactly what Dave said, Facebook groups, church groups, men's groups, it doesn't matter. Build community, friends, neighbors, internet pal, whatever, it doesn't matter. You create a Patreon group, okay? And there's a million of these things, meetups, whatever. Build community. Number 2, organize that community. And number 3, convert that community into something political. That's it. Build community, organize that community, and then repurpose it into some kind of political objective along the lines that Dave said. Christian nationalism and white nationalism. That is the future. That's what Donald Trump ultimately represents, whether that nitwit knows it or not.
Start a bowling league, then J-Pilt. No.
Well, no, but
go to your local Republican Party committees,
No,
stuff
Cam
like
is absolutely right. I mean, like there's the Republican groups, right? But then there's these secondary groups. Like there's an app called the Orange Pilled app, right? And it's a location-based app for Bitcoiners to find other people that are involved in Bitcoin. And then, I think on that one in particular, there's like a weekly or monthly meetup where everybody gets together at a bar and we go talk about Bitcoin and whatever. But the point is, create groups like that.
Yeah.
Create groups like that.
create apps like that.
Because it's not political.
That's right.
It's not expressly political. It's something that's like interesting on its own. But then all of a sudden, you're sitting to yourself thinking, oh, how much you like Bitcoin or whatever. But now the government's going to ban self-custody. Now you need to take political action. And so that's how you can weaponize these people. You can do it with fishing, hunting. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin or anything like that. Any interest group can be weaponized in this way to be used for political ends. And the left is very good at that. And we have traditionally sucked at it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, you got this opinion on the right of like, oh, I'm not sending my kids to college. I'm not, they're just going to be like, they don't need college. It's just like we actually need like the elite on our side.
Right.
We need like people that have the credentials to be able to go into certain fields. Otherwise, those fields are going to be completely barren of the people that we need. We need all people of all sorts. We need people who can who can create the apps. We need the people who are going to meet up on the apps.
And I need my kids to be legitimate because I have destroyed my career prospects. So,
I think we all have. All three of us here have. We're never getting normal jobs ever again. It's
Camp's
never
pretty
happening.
normal.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, really.
I'll get a job cleaning
Yeah,
toilets.
I just remember it's important for people to know that most people around you at any given time, especially the white folks, but not just them either. Most people agree with us. The majority agree with us, okay?
Yeah.
I was in graduate school and I was taking a class with an overtly leftist professor, as one does. This is the day and age that we live in. And the subject of immigration came up. And so the usual lefty lunatics, most of whom were females, immediately started opining about how racist everybody is and how America's a slave-based country, et cetera, et cetera. And I was sitting there, and I, being the brooding Scotsman that I am, I could give a shit less what most people think. And so I said, I raised my hand and I said, immigration is destroying this country. It's destroying us. And I was extremely forceful. And then around me, hands started going up. I agree with him. I agree with what he said. All it takes is one. And then all of a sudden, boom, everything starts to cascade because most people agree with us. They're just scared.
Yeah, Trump started this, like I said at the beginning, or not at the beginning, like I said before, is like this show wouldn't exist without Trump.
No.
My show wouldn't exist without Trump. Like without Trump saying the things that he did after he came down from that escalator. Like
fake news.
Right. They're sending their rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
And you guys too, the three of you deserve credit. Nick Fuentes deserves credit. Andrew Tate deserves credit. I mean, the list goes on and on. All of these people are speaking truth to power, and they are facilitating this permutation. You guys are a big part of it too.
Well, thank you.
We've got one last super chat from Tree of Liberty, who gave $5. Thank you very much. Did that go? Relationship, family, real life conversation is appreciated. Great recurring show content.
Yeah.
Aw,
Did you
thanks so
refresh the entire page?
Okay.
Just hit the refresh.
Yes, boss.
Just to see. I deal with this every day. Well, I used to. Sometimes there's. Oh, okay, that's it. Tree of remember that black woman that used to do
Tree of
content?
Logic.
Tree of Logic.
Logic.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's a different. Okay.
I love
Anyway.
her.
Send us some emails too at info@thebacklash.net. Let us know who you'd like to have on the show. I think we're going to be starting to have guests on soon.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah. Steve Franson is going to be joining us
in studio.
in the beginning of January.
I heard about that.
Steve
Yeah, he's supposed to be
Franson.
driving up this way or something.
He's driving through.
I'm going to try to get Phil Turney on next week. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
We'll have Richard Spencer on.
But
at
we
some
got our
point.
special like Christmas app. Is that next week or the week after?
I think that's next week. It's creeping right up on us.
Yeah.
How many days are left? 13 days
11th.
till Christmas.
I think we're pre-recording this one, though.
We're gonna be live on all the Thursdays except for the week of Christmas, and we'll have like a.
Because I'm going to Mexico.
we're gonna
When
have
are you
a
leaving?
Fun pre-recorded. We're gonna
Me?
do this in our.
Yeah, you.
We're gonna do
24th?
this in our board meeting.
Well, why don't we
immediately
just do Monday?
following
Okay,
the
we'll
show.
figure this out. All right.
All right. On that note, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I think we might have hit 2,500 live viewers or somewhere thereabouts.
I think so.
We really appreciate
No, we're
it.
at 27 right now.
That is so
You guys
great.
How do
Please
you
send enough
count that up
super
so
chats.
fast?
No, you guys are doing great. We do really appreciate the funds. We are upgrading every single episode. We have a little Telegram group and we get in there and we talk about the issues. And then I have my Telegram group that tells me what went wrong. And then I have a little heart to heart with my mom and she tells me what, and then we just collate all of this information and then we try to make a better show next week. And so we really only can do this with your funding. We're pretty broke.
I'm kind of like that guy that we talked about with the. I'm kind of like Larry Franklin.
Oh yeah,
cleaning
You're gonna
muck
clean the
off the
sewer,
ground
yeah.
because the Jews have destroyed my life.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah,
You're
totally.
not the only one.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah,
the only
we
one.
all, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's-
we appreciate
We
the
do.
support on the show. That's backlash.net, not .org, not .com.
The
.net.
Backlash.
The backlash.net. The
Oh,
Backlash.
and follow our Twitter, which is @RealBacklash.
Yeah, we're over 1,000 followers over there now.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah. And we've also got all of our all of our links to each of our individual platforms on our Power Chat page. You can go to the About section and get links to Cameron's YouTube, to Vince's Rumble, And so,
dude, Cam's YouTube needs to blow up. Like, I don't know why it's not. Like, he's got some great shorts. Like, he's got this young kid that's editing for him. He's got
It's
a great
Neo-Masculinity.
Neo, I love his channel, but I have notifications on for his channel. Underrated dude, for sure.
yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. And we will see you next week. This is The Backlash.